Hey losers, I'm Coral. Welcome to my channel. If you're joining me for the first time, you're in for a treat because today I'm going to be talking about some horror releases that are coming out in the second half of the year. So that is between July and December. Although I will say it's always kind of sparse when we come towards the very end of the year. I mean, like, the coming months are going to be popping. It was really hard for me to choose what to include here because there are so many really interesting books coming out in the next 6 months. So I also decided to focus on some books that I'm really interested in that are coming out from authors that maybe you wouldn't hear about everywhere else. Of course, always kind of my disclaimer for these videos, which I do twice a year. I did one for the first half of the year, January through June. I'll leave a link to that in case you're interested. So my disclaimer, of course, is always, I can't give you an exhaustive list of everything that is coming out in the next 6 months. It would take me too long. I don't want to edit something like that, quite frankly. Like, I really love filming these videos, but they're edit intensive. But also, if there's something I didn't mention that you're really excited about or you want to tell people about, leave it in the comments. That is perfectly acceptable to do. I just don't want to hear people being upset with me because it's like, listen, I can't tell you literally everything that's literally every horror book that's coming out. That's just crazy. I have sorted these by months, but they're not chronological. They're sorted by month, but they're not sorted by date. Okay, now we can really get into this. Starting out in July, we have Mayra by Nickey Gonzalez. This takes place in Florida, which is a theme that I tend to like in books, I guess. It is a great Southern Gothic-y feeling place. And I feel like books set in Florida just have kind of a weird flair to them that I tend to enjoy. This is about a woman named Ingrid, and she is going to visit her childhood best friend Mayra. They're both Cuban immigrants, and Ingrid hasn't seen Mayra for some time. When Ingrid gets to Mayra's house, they kind of fall back into their normal friendship, but there is a new element to this friendship that is causing complications, and that is Mayra's boyfriend. The synopsis talks about how the house kind of plays a role in the story too, which is really typical for Gothic stories. So this sounds just interesting, and I feel like there are a lot of books coming out in the second half of the year that are translated horror or horror stories that are being told by people who are not from the country I live in, America, which is always very interesting to me. So, takes place in Florida. Weird house. Weird boyfriend, maybe? Then there is Negative Images by Rebecca Shire Akamelu. And this one I think sounds really interesting. Let me read you what the synopsis says. Anita Walsh, still reeling from her husband's sudden death, finds herself haunted not only by grief, but by his negative image, a new phenomenon where the deceased prey upon those they loved in life, turning intimate moments into nightmares. So, I mean, I'm really into anything that sounds like something I haven't read before, and that's exactly what this is. This is, I believe, a debut. It's touted as psychological horror. Then also in July, we have Black Brane by Michael Cisco. This says it's horror and weird fiction. Apparently this author is well known in the weird fiction world, which isn't something I am like super familiar with, so it does sound weird. This little short synopsis says, it begins with the physical pain of a bad foot and later voyages into absurdity, mad science, occultism, and existential dread. It sounds like it might play with reality. The synopsis says that a man flees from physical torture into his own memories and into speculations about life and reality. He meets a scientist who studies string theory and black holes. They call them black brains. They also meet a woman who feels like she has a black hole in her brain. It sounds complicated, it sounds weird, but it's rather short, less than 200 pages, the Goodreads page says, so I love a weird short story. Next in July we have Angel Down by Daniel Kraus. This takes place during World War I. It says 5 soldiers stumble upon a fallen angel that could hold the key to ending the war. They're sent on a mission to euthanize a wounded comrade, it said, but what they find is not that man, but instead a fallen angel that has been struck down by artillery fire. As you might be able to expect, it says they can't suppress their individual desires and work together. So jealousy, greed, paranoia. I love this little part of the synopsis that says the group is torn apart by their inner demons, threatening to turn their angelic encounter into a descent into hell. Okay, now we're jumping to August. This first book here I'd like to tell you about is called Tantrum by Rachel Eve Moulton. She is the author of The Insatiable Volt Sisters, which I have come across and scrolled past before, but have never read. So this is her next novel. It says, an exhausted mother thinks her newborn might be a monster. She's right. So it says that this is the mother, Lucia's 3rd pregnancy, which is also something I find kind of interesting. A lot of these like killer kid or like bad baby books, it's the first child, or ones where weird stuff is happening to the baby or to the family and the baby's involved, like Nestlings, Rosemary's Baby, Dearest, off the top of my head. It's not often that you have something with this trope and it's not the first child, which is kind of interesting to me, I think. So it says that right away, this mother, Lucia, knows that her baby is just not right. She is always hungry. She was born with a full set of teeth and a devilish grin. So I love that. And then the baby is just like going through milestones way more quickly than it should, etc., etc. So it sounds like it's kind of a little bit humorous. It also says that this might be linked to something that happened in the mother's past. So that's another thing that always interests me when present day things have something to do with the main character's past. It's also a really short one, novella length, 192 pages, and says it's a dark comedy, which I don't read a lot of, but when authors get that down, it can be so, so good. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Also in August, we have House of Monstrous Women by Daphne Fama. This is set in the 80s in the Philippines, and it says, a young woman is drawn into a dangerous game after being invited to the maze-like home of her childhood friend, a rumored witch. There's one rule, and that is to survive. And I love when I don't feel like I read a lot of books like this, but I love when movies involve like a game, right? Like the escape room movies. I really enjoy those. Saw, obviously. Would You Rather, Ready or Not, love those movies. And this sounds like this might fit into that. But also what I found interesting is that at the very end of the synopsis, it says, it's set against the upheaval of the 1986 Philippines and the People Power Revolution, which I have never heard of and I want to know more about. Also in August, we have 8114, which is by Joshua Hall. I'm assuming you say it 8114 because it seems like it's a house number. This is about a man named Paul who's returning to his own childhood home because he has heard that one of his longtime friends has died by suicide in his like abandoned childhood home, like in the main character's childhood home, which is so weird. It says also that he's interviewing like his friends that still live there and other local residents, which I do love an interview in a book. I don't know what else this is about. It's being put out by Clash, and for the most part I've liked what I've read out of their print. So yeah, the cover is kind of spooky too. Like, I don't know, there's something spooky about it. I mean, here, you can see it. You know, I know exactly what's spooky about it, actually. It's that there's somebody you can't fully see in this doorway, and I know the first, like, 10 times I looked at this, I did not notice it. That is very spooky. Also in August, This Is My Body by Lindsay King Miller. This is another religious horror. You know I love my religious horror. So this is about a single mom who is seeing behavior in her daughter that reminds her of someone she knew, I believe, in childhood. Possibly. Or maybe she just knows of this girl because it says her uncle performed an exorcism on this young girl. So now she is like concerned that her child is being possessed by a demon, and she knows like her uncle might be the only person who can deal with this. But it also says, as Bridget starts to uncover secrets about her uncle and that long time ago exorcism and her family's past, she realizes that she and her child have never been in more danger. So religious trauma, childhood trauma, thank you, I love it. Next in August we have 13 Months Haunted by Jimmy Juliano. I read his book Dead at 11. I just wish it would have it was just one of those books where you're reading it, for me at least, and I was like, I wish something would happen. This one sounds like I'm willing to do this again, especially because the synopsis of this sounds interesting. It takes place in the early 2000s, which right away I'm like, yes. If you tell me something set in the 90s, if you tell me something set in the early 2000s, I am probably gonna pick it up. This is about a public library clerk who is in charge of the liaising. Is that a word? I've never heard, I've heard liaison. I guess that's just the verb. Hello, I am not an English teacher. It says liaising with the local middle school. So she must be she must have something to do. Maybe she's like the librarian for them or something. I've never heard of a setup like that, but also, I feel like for a small town, we had really great libraries compared to like what my daughter has, which is like a part-time librarian, and their library is much smaller than ours was and stuff like that. And it's like, wow, this is really weird. So anyway, that has nothing to do with this book. Anyway, the library clerk notices a new girl in the 8th grade named Avery, and it says she won't touch any kind of technology, not even the computers, and her mother comes to school with her every day, refusing to leave her side, not even when Avery uses the restroom. So obviously something is wrong. There are these weird rumors that Avery's mom is a witch, that her sister and her father were killed by something supernatural. Maybe it was a strange virus. And this library clerk, who is, obviously somebody who is chosen to work with these kids for a reason, she's going to reach out to this little girl, and I don't know what happens because I haven't read it, but it sounds really interesting. Also in August, we have What Hunger by Catherine Dang. It says, a haunting coming-of-age tale following the daughter of Vietnamese immigrants as she grapples with the weight of generational trauma while navigating the violent power of teenage girlhood. So this is about Ronnie Wynn, who is the youngest child in her family. She has an older brother who is older, and her parents think really highly of him. Ronnie feels like they think more highly of him than her, so that's hard. She's going into high school, which is hard, and this is the summer before she starts high school. It says, tragedy strikes. A few nights later at a high school party, a boy crosses the line and Ronnie is overtaken by a force larger than herself. This newfound power comes with an insatiable hunger for raw meat. What is that about? This sounds like a coming of rage story. That's such a good cover. I hope that book is really good because I'd love to have that book with that cover on my bookshelf. Okay, next is a story in translation. This is On Earth as It Is Beneath, also coming out in August. This is by Ana Paula Mia. She is from Brazil, I believe. This synopsis says, On land where enslaved people were once tortured and murdered, the state built a penal colony in the wilderness where inmates could be rehabilitated but never escape. And this has not worked out quite the way that they planned it to. In fact, people are not changing for the better. And now it says, in the prison's waning days, a new horror is unleashed. Every full moon night, the inmates are released and the warden is armed with rifles and the hunt begins. So is this, what is that? The most dangerous game? Is that what this is? I don't know. But again, I really like the cover of this one. It's very like plain, but stark. I'm not really sure like what it's depicting, but I like it and I'd like to read this. Also out in August, we have an anthology. Not a huge fan of anthologies, but this one sounds so good. This is The End of the World as We Know It. New Tales of Stephen King's The Stand. So this is one of my favorite Stephen King stories. It is truly like one of the greatest works of good versus evil. It's an epic tale, and it says, this features unforgettable all-new stories set during and after the events of The Stand. So featuring contributors such as Wayne Brady, Maurice Broaddus, Poppy Z. Bright, Summer Cannon, C. Robert Cargill, Nat Cassidy, V. Castro, Richard Chismar, S.A. Cosby, Tanana Reebdo, Steve Barnes, Megan Gardner, Gabino Iglesias, Jonathan Jans, Alma Katsu, Carolyn like so many great names. Who else do I love? Catriona Ward, Chuck Wendig, Raph James White, Real Yours, Paul Tremblay, Brian Smith, like, oh my god. I am really excited about this, and I like will be so upset if this doesn't live up to my expectations. Also out in August, this is a big month, Shoot Me in the Face on a Beautiful Day by Emma E. Murray. I loved her story, Crushing Snails, and this is another one being put out by Apocalypse Party, which is a press I've really enjoyed reading from. This is about a woman named Birdie who, it says, has lost her son. She's also in an abusive relationship with her partner and also worrying about a home invading serial killer that has descended on her community. It says it's told from multiple points of view, listing some things that I guess you wouldn't expect like a point of view from. And you know, she used that in Crushing Snails in a way that was like so effective. It made me sick. It made me sick to my stomach. So I'm very excited to pick this one up. It sounds great. And like I said, I loved Crushing Snails so much. Jumping to September, we have first, You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. This one says Alien Meets Midsommar. There's a couple books coming out in the second half of the year that are compared to Midsommar. And you know what? I wish we would stop doing that. Like, sometimes this does catch me, but it's like literally every book is like this meets this. And then sometimes my expectations are ruined because I'm looking for a comp, or I'm expecting a comp for one of these things, then I don't believe that it was a fair comp. This starts out saying, festering masses of worms and flies have taken root in the dark corners across Appalachia. In exchange for unwavering loyalty and fresh corpses, these hives offer a few struggling humans a salvation. One of these hives is apparently run by someone named Crane. I don't know, it just sounds so weird. And I want to read it because like thinking about that grosses me out. And then so like I want to read it. Like thinking about just worms being all over the place. I like a worm. But have you ever picked up a pile of worms? They're like slimy and gooey, like a pile of worms is. Please don't ask me why how I know what a pile of worms is like, but it's gross. So I don't want to think about a pile of worms. Next, a book that I read actually but would like to tell you about is The Mean Ones by Tatianna Schlote-Bonne. This is also a September book. This is about a woman named Sadie. She is trying to do her best as an adult after experiencing this horrible traumatic event as like a preteen in the early 2000s, where her and her two best friends went to summer camp together, and her two best friends were murdered and she was not. And so this, like, her whole life since then has been about this, and now she's living under a different identity and just trying to keep it cool. However, she's having a hard time doing that when her boyfriend suggests they go on a camping trip with some of their friends. And she's like, I don't like camping, but her boyfriend doesn't know about her past. She's made some stuff up, and so she's like, wow, I can't tell him about this horrible thing. Guess I'll have to go camping. And things become really troubling when some of the things that happened leading up to this terrible event in the early 2000s start to happen again on her now camping trip. So this was a book I really, really enjoyed. I also love Tatianna's debut, Such Lovely Skin. That one was YA. This one is an adult horror book. Next, one that I'm really intrigued by, also out in September, is The Extra by Annie Neugebauer. This says, a really short and sweet synopsis. 10 people head out on a backpacking trip, but the first night, 11 set up camp. Everyone remembers everyone else. So who is the extra? What the fuck? This is really short. It's a novella coming out of Shortwave, and I just have to know what's going on. Then also in September, we have The Macabre by Kosoko Jackson. This is like a cursed or haunted objects book, and I really like those. I tend to really like those. So this is about a painter. I hope you can't hear that fly because it's so noisy and it just keeps buzzing around this room like there aren't 5 other, 7 other, 10 other rooms that it could be in right now. So annoying. So this is about a painter who is asked by the British Museum if he can hunt down and destroy these cursed paintings. Next, also in September, we have Playing Wolf by Zuzana Rihova. This is an author from the Czech Republic. This is about a couple and their son who move from Prague, which is a larger city, into a smaller village. It says, in hopes of salvaging their marriage. But the villagers don't seem to like them at all. And they start to hear strange noises at night, and it says that this corresponds with the mysterious flyers found at the local watering hole regarding a wolfen fairy tale. And then their son goes missing. It sounds great. I'm really interested in reading more stuff from authors that aren't from America. Obviously, I love my American authors, but there's so much out there, and also I find that I read a lot of, when I do read translated stuff, a lot of it is like the same couple authors, or authors from the same couple countries. I don't think I've read anything that's out of the Czech Republic, so I'm trying to broaden my horizons. The book also sounds great. I love the cover of it. I can't wait to see what happened to this couple's baby. All right, also in September we have Breathe In, Bleed Out by Brian McCauley. I believe that's the author who wrote Candy Cane Kills, although I haven't read that yet. Hannah has been running from her demons ever since she emerged from a harrowing wilderness trip without her fiancé. No one knows exactly what happened the day Ben died, and Hannah would like to keep it that way, even if his ghost still haunts her with vivid waking nightmares that are ruining her life. So she goes on this spiritual retreat in Joshua Tree, which is like, of course it's in Joshua Tree. Eventually, of course, things start to go wrong because there is a killer killing people at this retreat. Another great cover. I love that. That would be great with some step back art, although I'm sure it doesn't have step back art, but it looks like it should. It looks good. I like it. 2 books also out in September that are both nonfiction. We have Screaming and Conjuring, The Resurrection and Unstoppable Rise of the Modern Horror Movie. This is about, of course, modern horror movies, the history of them. and I want to read it very much. The second one, also nonfiction, America's Most Gothic, Haunted History, Stranger Than Fiction. So this is about haunted history, stranger than fiction. It says, reality can be even stranger as borne out in this lush and ghostly look at real people who lived and died amidst the trappings of the Gothic. So it talks about Mercy Brown, Marguerite de la Roque, Mad Lucy Ludwill, President Helen Peabody, who was the president of a college in Ohio, etc. So I don't know. I've never heard any of these names listed here. And so, like, I want to read it. Also, I love real haunting stories, like The Haunted by Robert Curran. And, well, I didn't love this one, but I read it. What is the one? Like The Strangers Upstairs or something like that. I also have this book I've had for forever that are like Minnesota hauntings. I found it. My dad let me buy it, which wasn't really a thing that happened, right? Like, we didn't just like ask to buy things and get told yes, but it was like this little, at this weird gas station, we were driving somewhere and it was there, and I've had it for probably like 20 years. Crazy. I should read that again. It's been a while. Next, is this our first October book? We have The Midnight Knock by John Fram. I did read his book, The Brightlands. Didn't love it, but this one sounds interesting. It says it's a locked room thriller about 8 strangers trapped in a remote Texas hotel as they race against time to save their lives. Reminds me of the movie Identity. Do you remember that one? I watched that. Me and my best friend watched that a lot for some reason when we were like 10, 11, 12 years old. All these people come together. It seems like they all have something weird going on. It says like these people have left behind a corpse and arson. These people are desperate to escape to the border. This person is on their way back from Mexico with a mysterious man pursuing them. They all have something to hide, and they're all trapped at this hotel, I guess. So I do love a locked room thriller. It's true, I do. And I hope that this meets my expectations because, I don't know, the Brightlands just didn't. Here's another chance to wow me, John Fram. I know he's writing one just to make it onto my favorites list. I know it. I know he's out there thinking about it every day. Next in October, an author I really enjoy, How to Fake a Haunting by Krista Carmen. And this sounds really interesting. Also, weird because this main character's name is the name of an author, Laini Taylor. This woman, Laini Taylor, is also in an abusive relationship with her partner, and her friend decided to stage a haunting so convincing it will drive him out of Lainey's life for good. But their plan goes horribly wrong. The plot is kind of subverted in a way. I loved Krista's short story collection, Something Borrowed, Something Blood-Soaked. And I loved her story, Daughters of Block Island, which was like a gothic mystery. So this sounds like it'll be just as fun. Next, one that is coming out of Ghoulish Books but doesn't have a lot about it. It doesn't have a cover yet as far as I can find, but this is called Mother Eating by Jess Hagman. This says, an oral history following the real life story of French Queen Marie Antoinette's royal court reimagined as a sex cult in modern day Austin, Texas. Pitched as Exquisite Corpse meets Lincoln in the Bardo. I did not read Lincoln in the Bardo, but Exquisite Corpse is one of my favorite books of all time, and I really like Ghoulish is a press that I look for when I look at throughout the year, obviously, but also especially when I'm doing these because I just really like the books that they put out. So an indie press you can support and a weird book you can pick up. This author is not an unpopular author or not necessarily even an author you probably haven't heard of. She had this book, We Ride Upon Sticks, that I heard about, oh my god, a lot. And actually I've looked for a copy of, but you know me and my book getting, it's like if I don't find it used, then I don't buy it, which is stupid. But anyway, that's why I have read it. This one is called The Unveiling. This is by Quan, and this sounds really interesting. It takes place in Antarctica, so there you go. It also includes people being stuck somewhere, so I love that. So this is about a woman named Stryker, who is a photographer looking for potential locations for a movie about Ernest Shackleton's expedition, which already I'm like, yes, I love it. And then something goes wrong and she is stuck with a group of people on a remote island. So I love it. I'm assuming it has those themes of in survival horror I like, where people start to turn against each other. Maybe, I don't know, but I'm assuming so. It sounds good. Next is Herculean by Grace Byron. This is also out in October. And this is about a trans woman who is going to this like retreat for trans women. She gets there and it's like everyone is talking about her secretly and she's like, this is weird. What the fuck? And then things get even more weird. It talks about rituals and demons. I don't know what this is about, but if I get the chance to read this before it comes out, this is one of those that like, I'd even read an arc of it. Also, I love the cover and the color of the cover. Okay, last in October, this is Itch by Gemma Amor. From what I see, this is ebook only, and I hope that's not the case. I guess we'll find out closer to publication time, but I love the cover of this. It's so creepy. Like, it gives me the fucking willies. This says it's a folk horror, and this is about a woman going through a bad time, and it gets even worse when she stumbles across a dead body that is infested with ants, and then she just, like, starts freaking out and thinking like there are ants all over the place. And it says, as she struggles with infestations of all kinds, she scratches the surface of an age-old mystery. A masked predator stalks the forest around Elwood, a place deeply gripped by ancient folklore and strange customs. It also says, the village dresses up for an annual festival, which makes me think the Wicker Man, obviously. So I'm very interested in this one. Okay, then out in November, listen, the rest in November and December, I was only able to find 4 books that sounded really interesting to me. Just 1 book in December. Total. Like, not even, I didn't list some of these because they weren't interesting. So I'm hoping towards the end of the year, it's not so sparse, but I guess we'll see. Maybe people, I don't know, do publishers hold back towards the end of the year so that they can push books into the new year, maybe? I don't know. Anyway, coming out in November from Shortwave is The Long Low Whistle by Laurel Hightower. I love Laurel Hightower's books. This says, a woman searching for answers about her father's death decades ago joins a group of cryptid hunters to penetrate the abandoned mine where he was last seen. Okay, next in November is Petty Lies by Solmi Bach. And this is also a translated book. This one sounds really interesting because it says it's structured around 4 letters and a journal, apparently. So it seems like it's like 4 sections and they're told from different people, possibly. So it says Mayra is hired by a wealthy single mother to tutor her son, but Mayra isn't who she presents herself to be. And also, G1, the boy's mother, is not a good mother. So, like, I'm not really sure what is exactly going on in this, but it's short and the way it says it's laid out is really interesting to me. So we'll see how that is. Last book for November. This is Turbine 34. And this is by Catherine Clements. It's 2035 and England is experiencing the hottest summer in living memory. A 61-year-old environmental scientist is tasked with evaluating the impact of a controversial new wind farm on the West Yorkshire moors. Camped out alone at Turbine. Oh my god. I'm sorry. I keep saying Turboyne and I can't stop. Okay, camped out alone at Turbine 34. I think it's like the 4 and the turbine. My mouth doesn't want to, oh my god. Okay, so camped out alone at Turbine 34, which was built on an ancient peat bog, she soon discovers signs of the devastation caused by the construction and begins to see things that shouldn't be there. She has dedicated her life to protecting the moor, but will it protect her? I don't know. But I'd like to find out. This one doesn't even have a cover yet. I don't even know exactly when this is. It says it has a November release date, but this is also in the UK, so I'm not sure if this will for sure be published at the same time in the US. I'm not familiar with this print, Wild Hunt Books. It seems like it's a indie press only book from December, but a very exciting book. This is Dark Sisters by Kristi DeMeester. I have loved what I've read from this author. This is another gothic story, thank you very much, about 3 women over 3 centuries, but they're connected to each other. A healer facing persecution for witchcraft, a picture-perfect wife in a suffocating community, and a rebellious daughter of a preacher. So I don't know how these stories tie together, but they do. And I would like to read this and discover what's going on. Now, listen, I had to do honorable mentions. These are books, I'm not even going to do the covers. I'm just going to list them because these are authors that are popular authors that I've read before and enjoyed, who have books coming out in the second half of the year. They are popular ones, which is why I did not talk about them extensively, but I don't know how many of these like videos or posts or something like that you watch, so I thought I would list them really quick just in case. So in July, we also have My Ex, the Antichrist by Craig DeLuey and Another by Paul Tremblay. In August, we have Black Flame by Gretchen Felker Martin, Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle, and The Unseen by Anya Alborn. In September, we have The Autumn Springs Retirement Home Massacre by Philip Fracassi, The House of Idol by Delilah S. Dawson, Coffin Moon by Keith Rawson, We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad, that's a sequel to Bunny, Play Nice by Rachel Harrison, and Spread Me by Sarah Gailey. Definitely the most inappropriate sounding title here. Then finally in October we have The Graceview Patient by Caitlin Starling and King Sorrow by Joe Hill, which is almost 900 pages. Like, I can't believe. Listen, the man loves to write a chunky book, just like his pa. So, holy cow. My voice feels scratchy. Like I said at the beginning of this video, if there's anything that I did not list that you would like to tell me about or tell your fellow viewers about in the comments, go ahead and do that. Just like, don't be rude to me, because I already told you I can't make this an extensive list. I can't list them all. Also, I'd love to hear if you're as excited about any of these as I am, or if I've turned you on to something new that you hadn't heard about before. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later. Goodbye!